All right. I think that our guest is here joining us. Hi, Tiffany. Great to see you. I don't know if you can hear us.
Hi, Alessandro, morning.
Yes. Hi, Tiffany. Great to have you.
Thank you guys. Thanks for inviting me. Let me just get my cameras to say hi to everybody this morning. Can you guys see me?
Yes, perfectly.
Cool.
So I think you will see that a number of us will have checked your profile on LinkedIn today. So
yeah, you guys are
we're
quick.
talking
You guys are really quick.
All right, so I think you know what to expect, guys, but I just wanted to spend a couple of seconds to introduce Tiffany. So Tiffany was introduced to me by a friend and a colleague and a personal mentor, and he's one of the people I respect and admire the most in my profession. He's also a professor at Hult. His name is Mark Esposito. So you may be lucky enough to have him as a professor later in your career. So when I asked him to recommend someone for this session, as I told you, I wanted someone who has experience with AI and a company doing work in AI, but especially someone who understands, the marketing of it. How do you convey the value proposition of AI? He said, "Okay, no doubt, I have the right person," and I blindly trust him. And despite that, I still checked Tiffany's profile, and I think yes, Mark did it again. So Tiffany she's the perfect speaker for today. I am incredibly grateful that she's here. So this will be it for me. I won't take any more time. Tiffany, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. So as Alessandro just mentioned, I was introduced to him by Mark, who also is one of my mentors. And I've heard of Alessandro for quite some time from Mark. So I think you guys are very lucky to have this opportunity. And this is such an awesome course that he kind of briefed me on a bit this week. And I mean, just the idea that there's a course like this, when I was in uni, which is about over 10 years ago, and I studied communications and journalism, I didn't even have a course on social media, for example. We were still working with newspapers and very traditional forms of journalism. So I think this is a really awesome opportunity. I'm super excited to be here. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my presentation with you guys. You guys will let me know if you can see it. Give me 1 second.
It's there.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, perfectly, thanks.
All right, and it's full screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So just to let you guys know, I have a slide deck, but I want you guys to feel free to ask me questions. Of course, we can wait till the end of the slide deck, but hopefully we can get some conversation going as well. And I'll try to answer any questions to the best of my ability. So I'm not an AI scientist or engineer, although I can't even imagine the work that goes into that, but I do have some insight on working in an AI company and specifically an AI startup. We are a startup. And I think right now is a perfect time to talk about this because with the whole COVID pandemic, a lot of people are really finding themselves in a really difficult position. But I have to say we have been so lucky because AI is in a very interesting position right now, especially with automation, because we haven't seen any slowdown whatsoever in our type of work, and actually we've seen a demand in it. So so I think right now is a really good time to have some context on what we do. So I'm just going to get started with a bit about myself, a bit about Nexus and who we are. I feel so awkward whenever I bring a slide up like this with a huge image of my face. But let me just give you a bit of information about me. So I'm an LA native. I'm Spain-based, so I've been in Spain for about 10 years now. I went to university in LA at Loyola Marymount University, and I actually studied communications. I studied journalism. I had no idea I was going to be getting into AI at any point in my career. So it was a big surprise. And I kind of have worn a lot of hats in my, I guess, professional career, even though I'm still very early on into it. So I've done international sales and advertising. So I lived in 5 different countries doing advertising sales, community management at IE Business School, which is another business school here in Madrid, a big one here in Europe. I was a project manager and I designed online courses actually, and that's where I met Mark. And finally, I did some PR and digital marketing work with an agency in London. And that brings me now to Nexus. So I'm the global marketing manager here. And basically, I take care of absolutely anything related to marketing and communications with a very small team. So as I mentioned, we're a startup, which means it's tough because in a startup, you have very limited resources, a very small team, and you have to get your hands dirty in absolutely everything, which has forced me to learn a lot about AI in general, because we're such a small team, we're in constant communication. And I really encourage any of you, if you have the chance to work in a startup at any point in your life, in your career, I think it's an awesome opportunity. Albeit stressful, it's a really good opportunity to make an impact in a company that's growing. So I highly encourage it. Okay, so let's get into Nexus, the reason you're here. So what we do, the way we deliver value to our customers is kind of two-pronged. So on one side, we have our AI models and our AI solutions that we deliver to clients. And these AI models are basically made to extract information from documents that are unstructured. So don't worry about that too much. I'll get into it a bit later, what that means. So on one side, we have the technical models. And on the other side, the second prong of this value that we deliver to our clients is making sure that these AI models are integrated into our clients' business, okay? So we can't just shove AI models to a client and expect them to do whatever they want with it. We have to make sure that those AI models work within the client's environment. And just a little background also, I'm not sure if you guys know, but you've heard of RegTech before. Has anyone heard of that? If anyone knows what that is, you can speak up. I can only see 4 of you on my screen right now, including the professor. But anyone familiar with it? So I'm sure you're quite familiar with fintech, financial technology. We are a RegTech company. And what that means is regulatory regulations. So we focus mainly on serving clients with solutions that help them meet regulation standards and in highly regulated industries. So that could be finance, insurance. We don't focus on healthcare, but it could be healthcare as well, just to give you some examples. So we started small, again, startup. Right now we're kind of in a scale-up phase. We started in 2015 in Asia, and we made it over to the European and Middle East area in 2018. And something really interesting about Nexus is that we were profitable in the very first 3 years without any sales team. So it's literally our founding team working off of referrals, working off of kind of word of mouth from clients, mostly in Vietnam and in Japan. And we started out as an IT software company and then moved into AI. And just last year, we raised 3.8 million to expand. So that was a very big, exciting achievement of ours. And with that type of funding, we were able to finally hire some more sales reps. We've opened shop in Singapore. Singapore is a great place to be right now. Singapore, the government is actually very, very keen on helping their businesses. They give a lot of grants and aid to their businesses within Singapore. It's a financial hub as well. And they're just very keen on providing a lot of help to enterprises with training and AI capabilities and digitalization as a whole. So I won't spend too much on this slide. So this is just to give you an idea of where we are around the globe. So our headquarters are in the UK, they're in London, and this is where kind of our corporate office and our sales people are. Vietnam is where we actually have a very big team in Vietnam. Now I think it's almost 100 or maybe even more than 100. And these are our execution and delivery. We have a ton of project managers, quality assurance, data analysts, very, very high quality. I don't know if I would last a day in the Vietnam office. they are so on top of it. Our Japanese office is actually where our R&D is mostly focused, as well as a couple salespeople. And as I mentioned, in Singapore, we have sales. And if you look at the bottom of the slide, you'll see some of the clients and partners. So for example, IBM, we've partnered with them. We do marketing with them as well. And we try to combine our solutions to provide clients with kind of a full end-to-end process. And some of these other logos that you see here are our current clients. And here, just, I don't really have much to say about this other than that we have a really awesome team. I'm not going to go name by name, but you can see some of the founders. Right here, you see Mark. This is the person that Alessandra and I were talking about. He's a co-founder. And this photo is just of our Vietnam-based team. So we actually have a very diverse team. This photo was just taken in Vietnam with our development team. But our team is made up of over 100 people. So they're business people, they're tech people, and they're thought leaders. And something that we take a lot of pride in when we are vetting our talent is that they're people who are on a constant journey, like a lifelong learning journey. And we all strive to make sure we're experts in our own field. And we strive to be the expert in our own field. So now the good stuff, hopefully, is our offering. So as I mentioned, we had a two-prong kind of value for our customers. So if you remember, the first one was our AI models, right? So the first solution is our document processing. So this is an actual solution. It's not a specific technology. This solution involves different types of technologies under it. So in a very simplified visual, you can see here that it's basically taking unstructured data in a bunch of different types of documents and a bunch of different types of formats. So it could be scanned PDFs, searchable PDFs, unsearchable. Searchable and unsearchable, I don't know if you guys are aware, but when you have a PDF and you try to copy and paste text and it lets you, that's a searchable PDF. The unsearchable one is the one that it's a pain in the butt and you're always trying to copy and paste information and it doesn't let you because it's an image. That's an unsearchable one. So we can work with those documents. We can work with handwritten documents. We even take doctors' notes and things like that. You know how they write. Sometimes it can be really, really damaged or difficult to read. And we put our solution to it. And basically what it does is it takes out the important data sets and the data points that we want and structures it in a way that makes sense for businesses. So this is more or less the same type of slide. You could see here, these are some of the technologies that our solution has. So natural language processing, optical character recognition, and rules-based AI, okay? And you can see here in the red, this to me is a very impactful number. So if you think of all the data that enterprises are collecting, not on a daily basis, on a minute-by-minute basis, on a second-by-second basis, only 20% of this data is in a structured format. 80% of this data is unstructured, so these enterprises' IT systems have a very difficult time trying to read this data. And you think 80% of data, how much data are these enterprises either using, or sorry, losing? How much of this are being used in the wrong way, not made valuable, or sometimes used and then causing more errors and causing more time, more money being wasted by these companies trying to rectify these errors? It's a huge waste. So that's something that we really wanted to tackle with our solution. And here you can just get an idea of some of the documents that we use and we process and are able to extract data from. So we have a clean PDF of a pay slip, a wrinkled P60 form. We've worked with IDs that were literally cracked, halfway cracked up the middle, causing a lot of issues, a lot of shadows, and bank statements. Like, how many times have you spilled coffee on a document and tried to scan it? Like, I remember when I was in uni and I would try to scan information to my professor when I had to email something, just hoping it was readable to them. We're able to use all this type of documents and make sense of them. I won't go into this slide too much, but this is just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about with our intelligent document processing. So here are two different types of statements, right? They're from two different banks. They more or less are the same type of statement. The same information is there, but the information could be categorized with the same categories, but with different names because they're different banks or they're different institutions, right? So using normal OCR technology, which is where a lot of vendors use, it's basically like taking notes of a document, but not using your head or trying to categorize it or trying to make sense of it. So it's basically like a copy paste of information. Then we have information extraction AI, which forms logical relationships. So if you look at the two examples here, receiver and account name are the same thing. It's the name of the person who owns the account. But because we're looking at two different documents from two different institutions, they both have two different names, right? So this type of AI can read the information and categorize it, but it's not looking at the two pieces of documents and making sense of both of them within the same context. Now, the Nexus IDP extracts key information in a meaningful and consistent manner. So there's semantics behind it. So we can take these two documents and put some rules based in the AI models that we create. And the documents themselves, the machine learning teaches itself that account name means account holder and can apply the same rules to any type of document. So this makes it so much easier for companies or for enterprises or financial institutions to take various types of documents from institutions that aren't with the same structure and make sense of these documents and not waste time being picky and nitty and having checkers input data manually using the same types of categories. Let's see. And quickly, the second prong to our offering. So we already talked about the AI models, which is the IDP. The second part of it is integrating this into the systems. So a lot of AI solutions, put it this way, in 2020, enterprises know the value of AI, right? Or we think most of them see the value in AI. The fact is that although they can see the value in the AI, the deployment of the AI within a system often fails in a majority of these companies. And why? Is it because the quality of the AI models? No, it's the fact that they're building AI models or vendors are supplying them AI models that cannot be easily integrated into their systems. So if you think of an institution like one of our clients, HSBC, I mean, this is a massive global bank, right? I mean, I think they're present in over 80 countries. They already have their IT systems set up within their environment. They already have very complex processes set up in multiple different departments. You can't just shove an AI model made by a vendor into a system like that without interrupting the system, without causing downtime to the system, or just kind of throwing it out of whack. So our job is to make sure that the AI models that we provide can be seamlessly integrated without causing any kind of downtime or interruption to these systems, if that makes sense. So you'll see we have kind of a 5-step process where, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory in each of the process names, but we'll meet with the client to identify the needs of their business. So you can't just throw AI for the sake of being AI. You need, when you speak to a client, you need to know, and the client most of all needs to know what business problem are they trying to solve. So I think it's very easy for a lot of, business leaders to say, okay, we're going to bring an AI vendor in. We want to reduce costs. Yeah, well, join the club. All of us do. But what part of your process is this AI going to be utilized for to be able to do so? So we figure that out with them. We design a roadmap, which is we design a plan basically. We then develop the models, the AI models, bespoke AI models for this business. We validate and refine the models. So we're doing testing with them, and the machine learning eventually becomes better and better with more data being fed into it. And then finally we deploy and we update. And then we usually work for quite some time with the company to maintain it and to optimize it as time goes on. And this is quite simple, the benefits. It increases accuracy. So automation using these models basically eliminates a majority of the types of errors that manual human teams are making. So if you can imagine them, how many documents a day these quality assurance checkers, for example, are looking through and manually data entry hundreds of different data points a day. I mean, we're only human. I don't know how many I don't know how many mistakes I've made in this PowerPoint itself. I'm hoping not too many, but I was working at 11:30 last night. And, you know, as a human, of course, I'm making data entry errors. I'm constantly, you know, we're human, right? Saves time. So of course, if you're automating a process, you aren't having humans sitting there doing these kind of mundane, repetitive tasks that take a long time to fact check as well. And then finally, frees up capacity. I think one of the biggest challenges that AI faces right now is people thinking AI is going to replace humans. AI is bad because it's going to replace an entire workforce. Although in some cases, humans are replaced by AI in certain instances, there's other cases where we're really empowering some teams with this. So you're taking talent away from manual data entry to let them use their creativity, use their talent to focus on more important tasks, more tasks that are maybe higher value decision-making tasks. You know, instead of having a bunch of people in there inputting data. So it's kind of, it works both ways. Although we may be losing some jobs, we're also really empowering teams to do what humans are meant to do, which is to make human decisions, right? Okay, so applications for our AI solutions. And I think this is very relevant for you guys right now for this class. AI automation is beneficial, I mean, almost just about everywhere in so many industries. And for us, especially in highly regulated industries. So I mentioned we're a reg tech. Automation in highly regulated industries is very valuable. Why? If we take, for example, financial services, finance and banking, this is our main focus as Nexus, right? When was the financial crisis? 2008 is when kind of everything just went upside down in terms of the financial services sector, right? So post 2008, regulators really saw the need to up their game and to refresh the regulatory laws and the compliance rules to prevent anti-money laundering, to prevent fraud, and basically to prevent anything from anybody who wanted to use in a bad way the financial services system. So now they're very stringent with these rules, right? So that means they're constantly, I mean, every year there's just more and more rules, you know, that institutions must follow to make sure that their company is compliant. And so when they're not compliant, for example, when a bank is not compliant, the penalties for these banks are in the millions or trillions. I mean, if they're a global bank, it can be pretty rough, right? So one of our jobs and one of their jobs is to make sure that they reach compliance. So we're building AI models for them that are reducing the risk of non-compliance by reducing errors within their processes. And also our AI models are programmed to make sure that we're in there updating the models every time a new regulatory law is put into place. So this is something for us that's not only beneficial as a company right now, but we're seeing a lot of need for it. Banks are desperate to make sure that they're not only becoming profitable and reducing costs, but also they're within the law, because they don't want to, you know, mess up any reputational damage, any reputation image that they have right now. So why now? Why is automation important, especially now? Is one, more and more data is being generated. This goes without saying. I mean, the amount of data that companies are acquiring from their customers, and very sensitive data, again, when you're talking about banks, when you're talking about financial institutions, you're asking clients for very personal information that cannot be leaked, right? So they need to make sure that everything they're doing within their power is keeping their data secure, the AI models are secure, and they're reaching compliance. Two, I just talked about this, very complex and stringent regulations. It's a pain in the butt for financial services, but they have to do it for the good of their own customers, of course. So that's a need for automation. Is cost optimization. So of course, businesses have very limited budgets and they have to split their budgets between a lot of different departments. So right now, they just need to save money. They need to save money. They may not like to say that, you know, when they're talking maybe in public, but of course they have to reduce their costs. So that's where we come in. and customers expect real-time responses. And this is something that I didn't talk too much about, but this is so important. Customers are the lifeline of business. So if a customer is dealing with a business that takes too long for any kind of approvals, for example, if you're applying to, if a bank is onboarding a customer, for example, sometimes this process can take so long and it just causes customer insatisfaction. And when you're losing customers, you're losing business. And if you lose business, then you're in bankruptcy, you can't run anymore. So we really try to make sure that we work with the business to make sure that customer experience within whatever business or industry is optimized with our solutions. And now the case study. So you can kind of see in practice what we've done. I have both a case study and I have a use case. The case study is a client that we have currently, and it's a real case, but I do have a use case that I want to mention to you guys that I think is very important that I'll quickly run through after. So as I've mentioned, we work with a global bank, a very, very large bank in over 80 countries, and we've helped them automate their sales quality process, specifically in this case for mortgage and lending. So this bank had a sales quality team made up of about 120 reviewers who would literally manually look at documents, whether it be scanned PDFs, in emails, online, and search through over 10 different data sources and over 180 data points. Can you imagine one person checking for this type of data to basically do a sales quality check to make sure that the salespeople received all the correct information from the purchasers of, for example, a mortgage loan. Each check took about 4 hours. So there were a number of different compliance risks. One of them, of course, being in unchecked cases. So imagine if we had 100% of the cases that were supposed to be checked, the bank was only checking 10 to 15% of these cases max. So sure, you may do a good job checking 10 to 15% of these cases, but if you have some major errors in a couple of the cases that went by unchecked, you're facing penalties, you're facing time lost in rectifying these errors, inconsistencies. And of course, it's just a slow process. Here, maybe I'll probably send Alessandro you the deck so you guys can access this, but this was a case that the UK government actually wrote about in one of their the government's brochures about use cases in AI. So that's a link to go to the UK government's page you guys can check out later. So what we did is, well, we automated the internal compliance process. So you could see the phases that we used right here on the bottom left. So it's similar to the phases that I explained earlier. We sat down with them. We wanted to understand their process. Of course, it's a two-way street. We work very closely with the clients. We identified the structured data and the unstructured data that the bank needed in order to complete these checks. We developed the models, we tested and improved on them, and we deployed a solution in the bank's environment. And as I mentioned, data is very sensitive. So actually our solutions don't need a whole lot of data. It needs the correct data, but from that correct data, we can use a very small data set and continue developing the models that way. So you can see the impact. We went from 4 hours, it was 4 hours, right? Yeah, 4 hours per check to just 1. All cases now within the bank are checked with a 99.5% accuracy level, and we've standardized the process. And this to me, I think, shouldn't go unnoticed. If you have such a huge bank, such a huge institution that doesn't have a standardized process, that's using different reviewers, different data sets, the inefficiency is just, I mean, it's remarkable. So we were able to standardize a process and give them a 10% return on their investment. This is a case we brag about often. I do have some links actually that I can send you guys with a very detailed case study that we have on our website. But this is one of our big ones.
It would be great. I also would love to review them because I've seen the link you showed from by the government.
Yeah.
And I knew from Terence and Mark that you did this.
Yeah.
But it was a high level chat, right? So I'd
Yeah.
love to learn this in more detail.
Yeah, this is, and I mean, as a startup, to be able to kind of grab a bank like this, a global bank, was just, we're very, very proud of it. And that just is a testament to kind of the quality of talent that we have, that we're able to do it. And this use case, I added this morning right before we spoke, because I think this was very important to touch upon. So this isn't something we've implemented with a client yet, but this is a use case of something that can be done with a client. So this is for life insurance claiming, okay? I'm not gonna go read through all of this, but for example, if we have a life insurance company, so a very difficult thing that they have to deal with is, one, insurers don't have the best reputation. Have you ever gotten in a car accident or something like this and trying to make a claim for something? It is like pulling teeth and jumping through loops to get your money back for something, because they're always trying to get out of it. Insurers traditionally have a very bad reputation for being insensitive, because insurers are really only dealt with when crappy things happen, right? So of course, with life insurance, you can imagine the people that are going to make claims in life insurance are going through a very difficult time, whether they lost a loved one, a friend, something like this. So in a nutshell, when someone goes to make a life insurance claim, they call up the insurer, and the insurer asks them, for example, to send a death certificate of their family member and personal identification for them to receive the claim. So once the insurer, first of all, the customer or the claimer has to send all that information via email or post, which snail mail, right? So that's still a thing. People still do use the mail sometimes. Once the insurer gets the documents, they need to scan the documents, and their team needs to actually manually enter all these details into the system. After doing that, the team prints out the documents and posts them back to the claimer for them to sign and post back. I mean, how many times? That's what, 3 times already in the post itself. I don't know about the UK post, but the Spanish post isn't the fastest working public post system in the world. So sometimes it can really take ages, and especially think of it something like right now, a pandemic. I mean, it may take weeks, right? So if you're imagining two days per post, that's already 6 days. You're already into 2 weeks now before insurers can get their claim. So of course, this has operational risks for the insurer. So the same thing as the bank: inconsistencies, ops errors, manual data entry causes huge backlogs, a long time for turnaround. But something that I wanted to mention again was the importance of keeping the customers happy. And our automation, I sound like I'm making a stretch here, but really can shorten kind of the burden time or emotional distraught of a customer in an already very difficult time, right? So with this long process, sometimes the insurers might have to call the claimer, for example, because they can't read some information on the documents. As a claimer, I wouldn't want to call anybody going through something like this because it's awkward. And as the receiving claimer, if I'm going through a very difficult time, the last thing on earth I want to do is talk to an insurance company to convince them to handle over the money to me, right? So that's something we helped, or we would like to and can help a life insurance company. So using the same IDP technology or solution that we offer, we can shorten that time from, what was it? I think it was 1 week minimum processing time to 1 day. An estimated cost reduction would be 90%. And the impact, again, reduced time, increased accuracy, costs, you're freeing up capacity. And I think, I didn't add this, but I think the biggest one is not putting an extra burden on the customers and making those customers feel that their insurer can be trusted and actually cares for their well-being, which I think is something for an insurance company is golden to keep in mind nowadays. Okay, so that wraps it up. I left this quote on the last page. This is a quote actually from Terrence, Danny, and Mark, who are all co-founders of Nexus. They've written a book on AI and AI applications in business. and I highly, highly recommend it. I've read the whole thing. It's actually quite an easy read. It's not overly technical. It's a great read for, I think, for your class, Alessandro, actually, because it's very relevant. It gives a very introductory level of what AI technology is, what AI technology can do in business, at a very kind of higher level, in a higher level manner that's easy to digest. So one thing that I thought was important to put was AI cannot define or replace your business strategy. AI for AI's sake is not useful or cost efficient, but employing AI strategically to help advance your business can be a boon for everyone. So this is something I mentioned in the very beginning. Throwing AI into a business, whether you're an AI vendor like ourselves, or you're on the receiving end and you're a business looking to employ AI, you need to have very clear what your objectives are strategically to make AI work. AI can do a whole lot of good, but it can be really useless if it's not employed strategically and in the right way. And I think that's something very important that a lot of very experienced business professionals are falling into this trap, right? So yeah, that's about it from me. I need a drink of water. But I hope I made it very digestible for you guys, and I'm open to any kind of questions you may have.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you. And Tiffany, please do have a sip of water. You can. You know, I'm based in the Middle East. I live in Abu Dhabi, and when we do webinars in the region this time of the year, because it's Ramadan and we're not allowed to drink.
Oh, so, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
no,
I don't have any
have
water
here.
because I know that if I have water next to me, I would just automatically drink.
Without thinking.
Now, during this session, it's okay because we're not worried about it. Thank you. I mean, it's incredible how much coverage and detail you managed to squeeze in this presentation.
I'm surprised at myself, to be honest.
Yeah, but you should pat yourself on the back. Very, very, very useful.
Well, you know, when I feel like I'm learning just as much, right? So very, very seldom as a marketing person, I'm not meeting clients. Very seldom am I really in the nitty gritty of kind of the sales and tech part of it. So I had to research a lot on my own company to be able to explain it to you guys. So you've helped me just as much, really.
But that's great. I think that another thing that probably works really well is that because you're not a techie, you have to understand it and explain it in a way that other non-techies can understand it and appreciate it.
And this is a big challenge. This is a big challenge. If any of you guys are ever thinking about going into an AI company or firm, one of the biggest challenges that an AI firm has is explaining the value to business people, because it is very difficult. I don't know if any of you are techies, but I don't understand you guys. I don't understand the way you guys think. It's very difficult for me. And so it's something very interesting to be able to learn how to communicate a very technical solution to a non-technical audience.
Absolutely. Listen, guys, I think that you've prepared a few questions. We have them somewhere on Slido, so we can always go back to those. But I think that in the meantime, while listening to Tiffany, some of you might have come up with different comments or different questions. So if you want to just ask questions directly, Eduardo, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Tiffany. Thank you for being here on Zoom. Nice to meet you. So my first question is regarding the fact that you raised 3.8 million in 2019. I wanted to ask you if that was an official fundraise. Was that like Series Seed, Series A? If you can.
Yeah, this was a seed. This just came from a couple of personal contacts from the co-founders. So they had, I want to say around 6 investors or something similar to that. I don't have too much information on it. But yes, a seed round. We're actually looking to go into another round. We're working on it right now.
So you haven't opened it yet?
Mm-mm. And to be honest, you know, I'm not too sure about that. They don't openly talk about that with us on our Slack channels. I know our CEO was like, screwing around constantly, talking to this person and that person all over the place. But I'm not too sure. I know he's working on it. He's always working on it.
Fantastic. And then a second question, going on to the product. Do you develop some sort of standardized product to then, let's say, deploy your solution one, where you go from a structured data set of your clients to structuring them and organizing them?
Yeah, so actually we do have some models that they're not completely standardized. So we don't just have a plug-in, kind of a plug and play model that works for any type of clients. But we do have, from what I understand, we do have a set of models that are pretty standard within certain types of financial institutions, for example, but not all of them, right? So I can't give too much insight into that tech-wise, but I do know that we do work with some models that are pretty standardized. But then as we go further along the process,
so let's
they
say
are all bespoke.
Standard, and then a tailoring on the necessities, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we do offer models like this. Mm-hmm.
And then so far you only been dealing with, let's say, vertical institutions into the financial industry, and you also plan to expand in the future to other businesses, more maybe in the B2C outside.
Yeah, we're completely industry agnostic. So our main clientele, or our target audience at least, is financial services like banks, institutions, wealth management firms, and things like this. But we do have, for example, we work with a regulator in Abu Dhabi, the Abu Dhabi global market. We made a chat bot for them to help with the investor application process. We have also done some work in, I think, the Dubai metro system. I don't know if that was prior to us going into really AI or not, or if that was back in our software days. But we do try to stay industry agnostic, but we have limited resources. So we try to make sure that the case studies and things that we are presenting to clients and proposals are mostly right now based on financial services, because that's what we have the most experience in. But we do plan on kind of opening our wings to other industries.
And just one last question. For example, in the case of the Abu Dhabi chatbot, was the chatbot, so let's say you probably went in as a consultant to improve with AI, and the chatbot was of your own ownership, or did you then outsource that to an external product?
No, it was ours. It was all internal. It was an internal program that we've made. And it just launched very recently, actually. So yeah, everything was in the
an umbrella of products.
Sorry?
Or are you starting to develop an umbrella of products outside the
data? I
I
wouldn't say we're spending too much time on it. What we do have, aside from the AI, the two kind of pronged solutions that we offer, we do have an AI platform that we don't sell as a product, but it's basically the integration platform that we use internally to be able to deploy our models within systems. It's called Potter. It's not on, we're actually, keep a lookout, because we'll be launching our new web in 2 weeks, and we're gonna have a very, very detailed web of all of this. But it's not kind of it's not a product offering where people can subscribe or, you know, kind of use on a basis just yet. That's what we're hoping as it moves into the future, but not yet.
Thank you very much.
I see in a chat, Alessandro, you said it took 4 months to open a bank account for your wife.
Yeah, and I also had to go in person to the bank and queue every time, more or less.
Yeah.
It was,
yeah, it's a pain.
Yeah. I think Nicole wanted to ask a question. Is it a team question from the both of you, or only Uni?
No, just me. Yeah, thank you, Tiffany, for your presentation. It's very interesting. I do have quite a few questions, but I'll leave it to 2. So the first one was, once you have a client, how long does it take to actually implement the AI system into the business on average?
This question, I don't have an answer for you. I think it ranges. Takes a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. There's a lot of working with the client very closely, but that's something I'd have to get back to you on and ask one of our sales team or our project managers to really get a better idea of it.
Okay. And just a second question. it was, what was it? So I've got so many here.
It was a lot.
Has there ever been any issues with documents being processed incorrectly by your AI and machines?
Well, I mean, it's not 100%, you know, so we basically, our models with our IDP start at a roughly 80% accuracy rate from the model that we develop and employ. And then with time, which means, of course, human intervention. So when we're checking and testing, humans are still used. So it's not a model that's shoved in and then we forget about human beings. Human beings are still the ultimate decision maker in every process, right? So we still need management to check these models. So roughly we're moving from an 80% accuracy rate, and with human intervention and testing, the models eventually run up to about 99.5, something very high percent accuracy rate. So there is that margin of error, but I can say that no client yet has had that 0.5% and came up to us complaining about it or anything. But of course there's errors especially in the testing process and early on.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for answering those questions.
If you have further questions later, Nicole, it's great, no problem. I know you have many, but I want to let Hugo ask a couple of questions as well, and then Isabella.
Hi, yes, I'd just like to say thank you so much for your presentation. It was really interesting. I just had one quick question about the intelligent document processing. So my understanding is that it's really useful for sort of automating the mundane tasks that are sort of associated with doing business. But to you, what is the next logical progression on from IDP?
That's something that I wouldn't be able to comment on much. I mean, our document processing and our cognitive document reader, which is basically the same solution, it's the same solution with the same name. The accuracy level and the usefulness to me is kind of unparalleled, but I would think that, I don't know if it's so much the next progression for us, because we are working on it, is again, getting the integration in, because that's where the problems that most enterprises are having. That's the problems where people, you can have a, proof of concept, right? A POC done, but I don't know. I read an article the other day. It was a crazy percentage number of enterprises who cannot move past the POC phase. So it's not so much, again, the AI technology, it's how that's integrated within an already up and running system. So again, we are already working on that with Potter. Again, a thing that we don't have published online anywhere, so I can't really point you to any directions, but it's basically an AI. If you Google maybe like AI integration platform, you'll see that that's kind of, I think, the next step that a lot of other vendors right now are trying to get a hold of. So we have kind of competition out there right now that have realized the real benefit in that, because businesses need it. So I think not so much the technology is the next process or progression, but how to integrate that technology within a platform that doesn't screw with an already existing infrastructure, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think Isabella also wanted to ask something, and then we have Paolo.
Yes, my question is more related to, I don't know, like sales and like dealing with customers. And I wanted to know how you deal with skepticism and people that they don't believe that AI is in the right position, or it has like the more ethical viewpoint for working. So they want to keep more traditional views and keep doing what they are doing.
Well, put it this way, we aren't, with the people that we get far enough, for example, a call. So if they're a marketing qualified lead and we end up getting into a conversation with them, none of them, when you get that kind of far down to having a call with someone agreeing with you to have a call, none of them are skeptical in the terms of AI can't help us. So we don't deal with that. So up until now, we're dealing with a lot of referrals, people coming to us. And then our focus is then working with them to figure out the business need for it. So they know there's a need. There's not an idea of this is not necessary. They know we need AI. because we want to reduce costs and streamline operations, basically. So that's the challenge that we deal with. The challenge that we're dealing with is identifying a business problem. I guess would be the first kind of challenge. But yeah, not many enterprises are willingly talking to us with skepticism in terms of ethics, especially in finance. I don't know how much financial people are worried with ethics, but it's not something that we deal with too often.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Actually, at the end of the course, we have another guest who's another great lady, and she teaches ethics, AI ethics at Harvard, and she also launched an advisory company on AI ethics. And I'm really looking forward to hearing her perspective on the same person that you just heard. And I think these would be two very interesting ways.
Different. Of course, I do have to say though, when we're working on a proposal, for example, so if we need in sales, the very complicated thing too is who's the decision maker, who's going to sign the contract for your AI, solution. So you would think if you're not too experienced, oh, let's go to the CIO or the CTO. No. Those are too high. So we have to aim correctly. So one thing that I have noticed that we dealt with is when we're making a proposal, very, very early on, I think we made some proposals that said something like reduces need for humans or something like that. And of course, they're very careful with that. When you get a big institution like that and someone needs to present that to their higher up, or imagine if it gets leaked out to any kind of public knowledge, you can't have a phrase that says reduces human capacity, right? So we're very careful. And again, although we do know the facts of maybe reducing employees in one area, we're still empowering employees to move to another area or to move to areas that are more needed. So
yeah, I agree. I think that I know that the way you do it, it does account for it, but the fact that the client is not open about or explicit about the importance of it, I think it's an interesting perspective on that.
And you always got like PR people and communications people and red tape everywhere for these types of institutions. So we're very careful. Okay,
I think we have Paolo and then Arthur. Then at some point we need to wrap it up because I think that Tiffany is also very busy, but she's being extremely generous with her time. But
yeah, don't worry.
Thank you so much.
First of all, thank you once again for your presentation. It's really interesting. My question is, how does your company tackle the implementation and knowledge gap between engineers and business people? Like often enough, managers don't understand how AI works or like how coding works, and how do you offer maybe courses or training?
This is such a good question. This is such a good question because it's such a big challenge that not only we have, but I think a ton of AI vendors and enterprises have. It's a problem I have in my day-to-day, even aligning the understanding between, for example, marketing and our team in Japan who are like geniuses, like over there working night and day on their models. And this is something that we have to try to tackle every day. And it's actually a big problem in what I just mentioned is trying to find the right decision maker. So we have to be very careful when we're outreaching that we don't want to reach out to 10 people in the same company and start looking bad, right? You want to make sure that you're very targeted with who you're talking to. So I think our sales team at this moment, of course, it depends on each case. But if they're trying to speak to, for example, a financial institution like an HSBC or something, they go into it. For example, I think in some cases with people that are mostly involved with ops, who want to reduce costs and streamline their operational kind of efficiencies. And once they identify the business need, after 1 or 2 meetings, when they kind of get to the point where they're really, really seriously thinking about it, that's when we involve the technical people in the meeting. So we do just have to involve different types of expertise in one meeting, but it always comes after maybe 2 or 3 steps in the process. So prior, actually, we've done, and we're still doing testing. So this is by no means kind of an end all be all or it's correct or not, because we are still testing on trying to outreach directly to technical, kind of the other way around, but we just haven't found it successful just yet. So the AI integration platform that I had mentioned earlier, that we don't have kind of on our site or anything, but it's used to integrate the AI models, we would never go to a business person with that kind of solution. We were thinking about going public with the Potter, the AI integration model, but that was going to be basically a conversation that we would only have with AI engineers and development DevOps, basically, because they were the ones who would need to build the models and use our platform to integrate it. So it really depends on what you're trying to sell and what the business need is. So right now we're basically, actually we do have a course, a webinar coming up in 2 weeks. And you mentioned if we do any type of training, we are just playing right now with the idea of having a corporate training for project management. So again, one of the biggest things is you have project managers who are software project managers, but a software project is not the same as an AI project in a business. So you have a ton of project managers who are well-versed in AI and software methodologies, but not AI. And so that can be very beneficial to companies who need, you know, training within their AI project management. So we are going to be introducing a training, but again, it's all trial and error. So maybe in 6 months' time, you see it was a huge fail. Maybe you see that we're providing training to Hult, who knows? Like, it's always trial and error. And it's the fun of being in a startup, really.
All right, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think there was another question by Arthur wanted to ask something.
Yeah, hi there, Tiffany. I wanted to ask quickly how long it takes for the implementation of AI in a company to become like economically viable over humans. Like, I know this will like differ from company to company, but like generally speaking, how long will it take for that investment in AI to become viable over just having standard like human employees?
Yeah, that's a question I can't answer either, because I think it's varied so much within our use cases. I mean, obviously the simple answer is just not overnight. It takes some time to, you know, for them to really understand the value and the ROI that goes behind it. I do think we have some detailed case studies with a specific answer in specific companies, but I'd have to get back to Alessandra on that because I don't have a straightforward answer.
No
I'm
worries,
a humble marketeer. So sometimes I don't have all the answers, but I'll try to find something about that.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tiffany. This has been amazing so far. I don't know if, I think I sent you briefly the link of some of the questions they asked before. What do you say? It's now on the screen.
Oh, okay.
I will go through them. I will scroll through them right kind of quickly. And if you find one that you think, oh, I would like to add something on this.
Optimistic. I'm very optimistic. Maybe I've been brainwashed by these people, but I'm very optimistic about AI. Again, people worry about this so often, but if you think about Alessandra, you're a fourth industrial revolution like expert, right? So if you just think of the natural progression of kind of industrial revolutions, I mean, it's the same thing. It's just kind of on a bigger scale, but I really do believe jobs aren't just going to be eliminated. They're going to be changed. They're going to be transformed into more valuable jobs, right? I didn't get to read any other ones. Sorry. I got excited about the first one.
I'm sharing the screen again.
When do you think? Oh, I think AI is going to have a huge impact now. I think AI has a huge impact now on the financial market or financial industries. I'm not sure.
I think it's financial service.
No, the financial markets, like the stock market and the indexes. If you go to a hedge funds, stock markets.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that one, to be honest. I mean, my gut feeling would say it'd be a massive impact, but I can't go too much into it. Privacy is massive. Privacy concerns are not going to have, we're not going to have more. We do have more privacy concerns. It's a huge concern for our clients, all of them, especially in financial services. So a cybersecurity and kind of AI enablement of higher security is something that it's a huge market today as well. Eduardo kind of answered that question about top management. Kind of answered or question 2 as well. The KPIs, I think it depends on what each institution kind of, we haven't had a coolness factor yet in any of the KPIs, but they're finance. They're not like so fun anyways, right? But yeah, revenue growth, profit, turnaround time, onboarding time. For example, in a KYC process, the onboarding time is a huge KPI.
Yeah, I think you discussed question 4 during your presentation. Some of the, most of the questions were written before your presentation.
Before, right? Yeah.
There was one. Yeah, I saw this one earlier. I know it was a bit of a serendipitous thing.
Which one?
You getting involved into a...
Oh God, it was an accident. If you would have told me a year and a half ago I was going to be in AI, I'd say, no, I'm going to be on like B2B makeup industry or something like that. I had no idea, but when I was working at AI at IE Business School, it just kind of, I met Mark and he kind of just introduced me to the company. So it fell into my lap, really.
Yeah, excellent.
Differentiation is difficult. This is a good question because differentiation within AI vendors is very difficult, especially in the startup realm when we're fighting against so many others. We're still working on this. This is still 3 years later, 4 years later, it's still a challenge that we face every day. And clients do ask, they just straight up say, what makes you different from vendor A, B, or C? And it's really something that we're trying to fine tune, which is why I mentioned the AI project management. We're trying to also kind of build that into our differentiation factor that a lot of other companies don't touch upon.
Fantastic. Tiffany, thank you very, very much. This was unbelievable. I think you really covered a lot in such a short time and provided a lot of very unique behind the scenes experiences. And this was more than we could really hope for. I really think.
I'm glad.
Any final comment or I don't know, just an applause or thank you or anything from you guys? Okay. Then,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And if you have any questions, Alessandro, feel free to reach out. I can send you much more material on what we have.
I really appreciate that.
I'd be happy.
I will filter any question or any request, and I'll try to make it manageable for you.
Okay, I'll let you guys go then. Thank you, guys.
Well, there's a few thank yous coming through the chat, but.
Oh, thank you.
It's been really appreciated.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.